All right, glad you're still with us. You're still watching The Morning Breeze. Welcome on to our topical discussion on this 18th day of October, the year 2013. Now, in our topical discussion, this time around we're going gender, and we're going to be looking at, remember yesterday was the Safe Motherhood Day, and of course it was another theme, teenage pregnancy, an obstacle to safe motherhood. Let us stop it now. Now, various MPs came in and asked government to invest more resources on contraceptives to fight the increasing number of teenage pregnancies in the country. Now, we're going to be looking at that issue of investing more, on contraceptives. We're going to be looking at how much has been allocated in the budget to address various gender needs amongst other issues. And of course, joining me in studio is Madam Sophie Kyagulanyi, the Programs Manager, Women and Leadership. And of course, she's going to be telling us more about, one, how much has been allocated, how much government has done to ensure that some of these gender questions are answered. And of course, we're also going to be asking her why the focus on contraceptives as it is. Is there no other solution that can be, that can be obtained to tackle this issue of early pregnancies as it is? Good morning, Madam Sophie.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us.
The pleasure is
All right, Madam Sophie, I'll start with a very fundamental question here. Why contraceptives?
Thank you so much. Our viewers this morning, hope you're having a good morning. Why contraceptives? It's a gender issue to really talk about contraceptives at this moment in time, and especially because yesterday was the World Safe Motherhood Day. Contraceptives and the uptake of contraceptives is one of the gender needs of Ugandans today. When I say gender needs of Ugandans today, is one of the financial needs that women and other Ugandans need today, which government should be concentrating on and putting resources to ensure that people have contraceptives available, nearer to them, accessible, and as well enjoying the contraceptive services. Why contraceptives? Because there is a concern that Uganda's population is on the rise. And because Uganda's population is on the rise, developmental-wise, it will be a good concern, but we need to curb our population to be able to manage a certain number of people or citizens in this country, and then plan for them adequately, and then deliver to them the adequate services.
Yeah, but again, well, let's look at the context in which this was brought. Where the Safe Motherhood Day was concentrating on teenage pregnancy, and the question would be: is focusing on contraceptives? Is it the fundamental right now, especially among teenage pregnancies?
When you bring the two together, teenage pregnancy and contraceptives, you actually have an argument, because teenagers who are currently engaged in child delivery and birth are being prevented from, for instance, continuing with their education and concluding their education. It actually speaks so much to the child dropout rates in school at a certain level of school, which means that the moment this teenager comes out of school to nurture and develop and give birth to a child, then that teenager is more likely not going to return to school. That teenager is actually a girl, and that teenager will be a woman tomorrow, So if this teenager has not gone to school, remember that the more you educate the woman, the more development you will have as a country. So if the teenager has not gone to school because she is being taken out for childbirth and all that, she will not develop herself and be the woman we want her to be tomorrow.
Yeah, but again, the measure here is teenage, as it is.
Exactly.
A teenager and contraceptives. How do the two connect?
The fact that we have to accept that the teenagers of today are sexually active. So the fact that the teenagers of today are sexually active, it means that they're going to enter into a number of dangerous situations like becoming pregnant. So the relationship between teenagers and contraception is to prevent them from becoming pregnant so that they can have more time in school and then conclude school and be developed as the women of tomorrow. That's the whole argument between teenagers and contraceptives.
Is that the best solution we can go to? What happened to the...
Of course, we know...
initially, we had the ABC, the abstinence, the be faithful, and the condom use. And if I remember, initially, among the teenagers, abstinence was highly recommended. So why not concentrate on abstinence?
But you have to look at the realities of today. The realities of today, that much as we have abstinence, the ABC strategy, we are talking to our teenagers, the morose decadency situation of Uganda, teenagers are actually sexually engaging. So you don't just look on because they're actually sexually engaging and you continue with the moral, with the ABC, everything. You have to employ a mild, prolonged approach. And that's where contraceptives also comes in, that whoever gets involved, whoever sexually becomes active, there is a pill, please prevent yourself.
Madam Sophie, if I may ask you, is it okay for a teenager to be sexually active?
While it's not okay, they are sexually active.
No, is it
and that's
okay?
the reality we have to deal with.
Is it
of course
okay?
It's not okay, but the reality means that they are sexually active. You don't close your eyes because it's not okay. You react to that. You respond to that. You prevent them. It means that you continue telling them not to be sexually active, one. But where they're sexually active, you provide preventative means of them not to get into the risks of being sexually active. That's what it means, because we can't run away from the fact as Ugandans, they are sexually active.
So because it is a wrong, we've accepted it.
Our providing responses doesn't mean that we are accepting it, because remember, we haven't stopped with the ABCD. We are continuing with the ABC strategy. We are continuing with our moral aptitude and encouraging them not to engage into sexual activities, especially when they're still young, because we know the repercussions. But at the same time, we are saying that where you do, there is this. We are providing all the mechanisms to help them address the situations that they may be involved in at such an early age.
What is the best solution that can be used to curb the fact that teenagers are highly sexually active? Because like you said, it is a wrong.
Yes.
So now what is the best solution to this?
I think there are no hard and fast rules here, because as human beings, a lot of things will happen as we go along. But for a country, the best solution would be, let it plan adequately for those teenagers who will be getting pregnant. Let it plan adequately to prevent teenagers from getting pregnant in the first place. Then when they do get pregnant, let it plan adequately to ensure that those who have got pregnant are well taken care of. There are those who will choose to have their babies. There are those who will not choose to have their babies. Let us have mechanisms that will protect them from going into dangerous situations of abortion, you know. So let's have proper ways of handling situations, and that's what our government should be planning for. In the healthy sector budget of 2013-2014, those are the gender concerns we are calling for. The contraceptive uptake is so low. So if the contraceptive uptake is so low, it means that either the contraceptive services are not provided, not accessible, and if these two are not accessible, the same teenagers you're talking about will not be able to provide, to obtain any responses when they come into a situation of pregnancy.
All right, now we're going to get into a very short break, then we'll be continuing with, with an adoption of contraceptives in order to curb early teenage pregnancies after the break.
Ennaku zino amawulire gafuuse ga kusaagirira era bw'oba obadde wakutuula ku TV ogalabe gonna oyinza okaddiira mu ntebe yo.
Naye wano NBS mu amasengejje amawulire tugakusengejjera ne tukuwa ekyo kyennyini kyeweetaaga. Tukuwa amasengejje gamangu nga gakuzimba era nga gongera obulamu bw'omu maaso, so nga ate gw'osooka okumanya n'okumatira era n'osigala ng'otegedde.
N'olwekyo kekkiriza akaddeko ak'omuwendo ng'olaba amawulire ago gokka agakugasa, n'oluvannyuma weesanga olinawo akadde olyoka olaba embaatira eyamiza ekisulo ekya sabbuuni oba embuzi bw'eyogera Olufalansa.
Tosubwa amasengejje wano ku NBS Television masava manyifu matuufu ate nga wamma masengejje ku lw'omuntu nga ggwe amanyi ky'ayagala.
NBS Television, your true source.
You're still watching the Morning Breeze and the School. Of course, you are still watching the topical discussion. We do continue with the adoption of contraceptives as suggested by a section of MPs who have suggested that government invests more resources on contraceptives in order for it to fight the increasing number of teenage pregnancies in the country. And we are asking ourselves, is that the best solution to this vice? Is that the best solution that could be adopted? And with me in studio is Madame Sophie Kyagulanyi, the Programs Manager, Women and Leadership, who is taking us into this. And we'll be getting various activists online. We'll be getting Pastor Semper. I do that, we do get him online for him to give us his take on this matter as it is. Is it a moral issue? And of course, if it is a moral issue, then what exactly has been done? Is this the best solution to the problem as it is? Now, Madame Sophie was still telling me about contraceptives as we went into this break. We were talking about access, to these contraceptives. But before we even get into the access, do they even know how to use these contraceptives?
That's another issue, because one of the reasons why the uptake of contraceptive services is very low is because they don't know how to use these contraceptives. Many of them have been involved in getting them off the counter in the pharmacies, and then the application is wrong, so it ends into more risk and more dangers to these teenagers who are accessing contraceptives at that level, simply because the availability alone is in question, and the whole access is in question. When we talk about 2012-2013, the prevalency rate for contraceptives was as low as 32% for Ugandans. And that's a big question for family planning in this country, not only for teenagers, but as well for even other women and mothers who are engaging in the usage of family planning. So those are some of the gender issues we are really concerned about, and we think that if government puts more attention to it and allocates more resources, we'll have these contraceptive services available. The availability would mean that the ones who are accessing them, including teenagers, are well prepared and well taken through the whole process of using them, and then we'll prevent the risks that may occur if they use them wrongly.
How gross is the problem of teenage pregnancies in the country?
From our perspective as social development workers, we look at it in the context of how many are not attaining education at a certain level, how many are dropping out of school because of early pregnancy, and how many of them are on contraceptives. That's how we look at it.
And when we
find that many are dropping out of school, and the girl-child dropout rates are very high at a certain age, and that's between 12 to 14. Of course, there are other reasons like child marriages, but when you bring in pregnancy, early child pregnancies, there's another issue there. And when you bring in contraceptives, it means that you're going to use the whole approach of contraceptives to guard against the dropout rates. So we look at it from that context, that many girls are not completing education simply because
Madam Sophie,
of pregnancies.
As women and leadership, what is your definition of a teenager? How would you define one?
Of course, it's more of a healthy definition than I would put any written definition, because written definitions can misdirect. You can have a child who is actually 9 years, but she will get pregnant. She's not yet a teenager.
So would you advise a 9-year-old to go for contraceptives?
Probably I wouldn't advise for a 9-year-old to go for contraceptives, but the whole preparation of this 9-year-old to enter into womanhood is the other issue. Many parents wouldn't even concentrate on that 9-year-old simply because they think the 9-year-old is still so young, but she can start menstruation at that early age. So the whole teenage, as it's been known, is from 13 years to 19 years. Okay, because that's the teen thing. But you can take it outside that bracket and bring in 10, even 9, 11, 12. The whole thing is the whole breakdown in the preparation bit in Uganda. The whole breakdown in the moral decadency that we see in moral decadency also speaks so much to the breakdown in preparing these young girls for what it means, for instance, to go into menstruation. What sort of services do you expect? How should you prepare yourself? So that breakdown ends up into having these girls engage sexually without knowing what it means. But beyond even that engagement of sexual, which many would argue that there's consensual elements in it, there's issues around violence and issues around abuse, where these young girls are either defiled or engaged sexually active by people around them without their knowledge, without their consent, and they end into pregnancies. So those are all the issues that are surrounding
Sophie, let me
it.
ask you, you're seated on your counter and a 15-year-old comes for contraceptives. What would cross your mind?
If I am a medical practitioner and I'm well prepared to handle that 15-year-old,
yeah.
one, I'll first prepare her. What does it mean? What is her situation? What is going on in her life? Why does she need contraceptives? That's my first point of call before I even deliver the contraceptives. But remember that the situation in Uganda is not that proper. The situation in Uganda is business unusual. I'm seated at my counter and I'm running a pharmacy. And in that pharmacy, my most important interest is to earn a living. So when a 15-year-old walks in, I won't even care whether she's 15 years old or not. What I'll be more concerned about is how much money does she hold in her hands. And I'll use that amount of money to give her whatever she's asking for. I may even not think about what she's asking for, and I'll just deliver and pick the money because my interest is to get the money. So let's look at all these things in two contexts.
Yeah, but again, it's taking me aback. As we think that the issue of having early teenage pregnancies as a problem in the country is a moral decadency issue.
Yes.
Would someone be wrong if they say that the mere fact that you are also encouraging these teenagers to go for contraceptives is also another moral decadency issue?
That is another argument that probably I may not want to enter into, but for me what I want to argue is that if we all sit back and just watch these teenagers get pregnant, have their children, enter into all the risks of having children. You know, some of them are health-related risks. Some may even have risks that may lead them not to have children in the near future. They come out of school, their school and education is broken down, and those are the children you want to see in the 20 years from now. What is Vision 2040 we are talking about? Who will be there for Vision 2040 if we haven't paid attention to these young girls? I'm not saying that there are only girls that are going to be looked at in Vision 2040, but they make up the biggest percentage of Uganda's population today. So we need to pay attention to what is preventing them from the education, which education will later develop them into the citizens we want for this country.
But again, what caliber of women are we grooming if we are encouraging 14-year-olds to go for contraceptives?
But let me tell you, we are encouraging women who will be able to make choices. My whole process, the one I described to you when she comes to me, is a process that will take into consideration what choices do you want to make for your life of today and tomorrow. My whole talking with this teenager would mean that I'm preparing this teenager to herself make a choice. Do I really need this contraception? Because by the time the teenager comes to pick a contraception at a pharmacy, probably they're not well aware of what it means.
Sophie, does a 14-year-old have a choice on whether or not to engage in sexual activities?
But she's already engaging. Whether she has a choice or not, she's already engaging. And probably she's enjoying it. So when we think about these teenagers, let's think about them as also human beings who are entitled to make choices. So when you're engaging with her and talking with her, try to help her understand the danger of the choices that she will be making. That's the whole point. And the moment she understands, believe you me, she won't make those choices. And when I go back to the whole moral decadence and the whole role of parents and elders in this country, that's what we're supposed to do. But because we're not playing that role, these teenagers are ending up getting pregnant. We can't just look at them, because we want the Uganda of Vision 2040, as we've been told, to be a Uganda of well-developed, well-educated Ugandans.
What's
all
easier?
of them, male and female.
What's easier, supplying these contraceptives or preaching abstinence?
The whole thing is, if we preach abstinence, if we're 100% that the more we preach abstinence, the more the abstinence goes on, then we go abstinence. But we're not 100% sure about that.
Has abstinence failed Ugandans?
We are not saying it has failed, but many have jumped out of that bracket of abstinence. So what do you do when they jump out? Do you look at them? No, you don't look at them. you don't look at them. You cater for those who are jumping out as you cater, because the reason for abstinence was to ensure that as Ugandans, we develop well, we complete education, we make our sexual choices as well at a right time. That's the whole reason for abstinence. We don't enter into sexual activities without making the right choices for ourselves and at a wrong time. We are trying to say abstain, make the right choice at the right time. It's up to you. So if we are continuing with that abstinence call and many are running out of it.
As you give me options.
As I give you options.
But the question is, do I need those options as a 14-year-old?
Because you've jumped out of the bracket.
No, why don't you try to reshape me? Why don't you
How?
try to
You're
take me
already
back to
sexually
where I'm supposed to be?
engaging. Do we just, what happens if we continue with you, abstain, but you're already sexually engaging? You see,
Why not
you're talking about abstaining, but you're sexually engaging. The two are not related at all. You either abstain or you sexually engage. That's what it means. While many have come back, you know, to the whole abstinence question through a whole systematic process of counseling, preparation, and talking to them and advice, very many are still out there. So you can't continue preaching abstinence when they are sexually engaging. You must come up with another approach to address those that are sexually engaging.
Why not concentrate on trying to find out why 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds are sexually active and trying to come up with preventive measures?
But you live in Uganda today, don't you?
I do.
Why do you think they are sexually engaging?
That's a question that I'm asking you.
Exactly. The exposure is just too much. And who is bringing this exposure? Media is one of them.
So why not treat...
When I talk about moral decadence, when I talk about a state that does not concentrate on upbringing, on moral preparedness of its citizens, those are all the issues I'm bringing out. We are running for development, we are running for all these things, but at some point, we are overexposing ourselves. We are over-opening up our children, for instance, to see all these things that are going on. The more they see, the more they become active in mind.
Now, Sophie,
and they would want to try out a lot of other things.
Now, Sophie, you know why exactly the teenagers are sexually active. Why not curb that problem? Why not treat? Why not prevent them from accessing whatever they are accessing? That is seeing them
prevent them from accessing WhatsApp?
Exactly.
You prevent them from having
if
phones.
If you feel that it is a problem, why not come up with a campaign?
Technology is all over. We can't stop them from technology because technology is to take us development. You can't stop them from accessing technology. It's the one that is actually, when they are there, when they grow up, they'll be more technologically sensitive than we are. Okay? So you can't stop them. Modes of education are now technologically up to date. They're using computer in education. You can't stop them.
So it is a problem. We've accepted it. And now contraceptives are the way to go.
No, the whole thing of accepting is selective in application. When you say you've accepted it, doesn't mean that you allow it to happen. We know it's happening. That's the key point. We know it's happening, and the fact that it's happening, we know it's not right as a country. And the fact that we know it's not right, we are putting in place all these other measures to curb against the risks and dangers that may result from it. That's why we are putting their contraceptive uptake. That's why we are asking the Ministry of Health to allocate more resources to ensure that contraceptives are accessible by all that are needing them, and are available and are of good quality, that they won't bring danger to those that are using them. That's what we are saying.
Now, coming from you, let's get at the demerits of accessing these contraceptives at an early age. What are they? What are the demerits that come with having access to these contraceptives?
Of course, you know that some applications of contraceptives have turned out to prevent some women from becoming pregnant. And some have turned out to women from even exposing them to cancerous elements in their bodies, you know. So those are some of the demerits. It doesn't mean that because a contraceptive is available and I can take it, I am okay. It has to match up to your genes as well, and your application to that has to be compatible. So the moment they are not compatible, there are health risks that are associated with it. The same applies to the health risks that are associated with having sex at an early age. You know, we're talking about all these cancers that are going on, cancer of the uterus. Many of them are actually generated from that whole process of having sex at an early age. And some of them also relate with the whole process of having sex early, but then the sex is not protected, and then the whole process of giving birth that results into situations of fistula, for instance, before you even talk about maternal death alone, you know, and then the whole process of this young person having a child, the whole body is not prepared. So there are quite a number of demerits in there that we need to handle and address as a country. And that's why we are calling for the Ministry of Health to put in more resources to handle that process alone. The whole preparation of these teenagers known to engage sexually requires resources, requires money.
Exactly. Now that you mentioned about the Ministry of Health and all, let's look at the health sector as it is. It is crippling. It is doing so bad. As we speak, recently we had the health minister and a section of MPs go to Mlago only to find the mortuary with no water, the mortuary with no electricity, a few personnel that are overwhelmed by the huge number of patients. And of course, we've also had drug issues. There are no drugs in what hospital. So if there are no drugs to cater for this ordinary malaria and all diseases, where are the contraceptives going to come from?
That's what, let me tell you, a human being's life is should be handled wholesomely. You don't take out a bit and leave the other bit. You know, look at it this way. The Ministry of Health and as well the health sector has been allocated 8.7% of Ugandan budget for 2013-2014, which takes you to about 11 billion 230 million roughly. But out of that, you need to know how much of that money will be allocated to, for instance, provision of maternal healthy related services, you know, alone, before you even talk about the whole referral system and the whole breakdown in referral system, and even before you talk about malaria and the whole uptake to malaria services and available drugs for malaria alone, because malaria is another component, as I am talking about maternal health as another component, you see? But for me, from a gender perspective, my first concern now is, while I know that malaria drugs and services will be available to many of the people who will seek them in many situations, while at national level but also at local level, I am also aware that maternal health services will not be available to those who will seek them, you know, because they are not accessible, they are not there. Talk about the issue of why women are giving birth with traditional birth attendants and not giving birth in the known defined healthy centers. Why? Because the services there are more poor. That's why they will choose to go to these traditional birth attendants, because at least the traditional birth attendants will be available throughout the whole process of childbearing, you see? But all those being issues, we need government to allocate sufficient resources to reduce the number of 16 women that die every day while giving birth. Okay? And that's what we are calling for. If we continue with these 16 women dying, then it means that our government is not paying attention to its citizens, and especially its women citizens of this country. That's one. Secondly, we are talking about contraceptives, as we have earlier indicated. We are saying that the more we have contraceptives available, the more we can partially guarantee that there will be more teenagers continuing their education. That is the argument we are making. We're not just making contraceptives available and then in addition to the other women, but also our call is for teenagers to prevent themselves from engaging in pregnancy and all pregnancy-related risks at an early age and be taken out of school.
Now, Sophie, if I may ask you, as you came up with this solution on contraceptives and all, was there any research conducted to see whether or not the lack of contraceptives was the reason behind the early teenage pregnancies?
Of course, there's been research conducted world over, and it's been accepted that, yes, this is the situation. You look at it this way. A child in Kaperabion, for instance, a girl in Kaperabion, she's 11 years old, not even 11, let me say 15 years old. She is fully grown as a girl. She's menstruating. She is raped. On her way to school or to the well or to collect water or to go to the garden or to collect firewood. She is raped. She doesn't know what has happened to her. And what happens? She gets pregnant. Assuming that child was going to school, she's going to stop from going to school. And that's one of the so many that will increase the poverty numbers in Uganda at a certain time.
But
in
again,
Vision
there are various
2040.
reasons as to why this girl will be raped on her way to the well.
What would be the reasons?
Well, we're looking at various reasons.
For example?
Here. Well, we'll look at poverty, we'll look at education, we'll look at it all. But again, if I may ask you, don't you think that by encouraging the use of contraceptives here, especially amongst the teenagers, you're simply you're treating symptoms. You're treating symptoms instead of the causes here. And the question is, you know the causes. You know what the causes are. So how about you tackle
in our
the
approach
causes?
as the civil society? We've used a multi-pronged approach. While we are advocating for more uptakes, more resources to go to uptake of contraceptive services, we are at the same time preparing these young girls to prevent from sexual activity at such an early age. And in our engagements with them, we are talking with them, we are counseling them, we are preparing them for the women we want them to be in the Vision 2040 and above. So we are using all approaches, but our intervention is such a drop in the ocean. And that's why we are calling upon government to probably borrow a leaf from the approach that we're using. And I believe also government has borrowed a leaf, but allocate more resources to that approach so that we handle the whole process of preventing them from engaging sexually, but also we handle the process of when they do engage sexually and are unlucky enough to end into pregnancies, what happens? But how can we even prevent them from getting into pregnancies? So there are all these steps that we are handling and we are bringing on board, and we are encouraging our government to put in more resources, and we ensure that we reduce the whole teenage pregnancy figures and statistics in this country. We reduce the whole child sexual activeness. You know, we reduce teenagers who are sexually active. We reduce the statistics and the numbers. That's why we are talking to them. We encourage more children and more girls and more teenagers to be in school and to complete school.
Sophie, would you give your 14-year-old daughter a pack of contraceptives while going to school?
Depends on the situation. If I notice that she's sexually active, as a mother, I would. Depending on the situation. Depending on the situation. If she presents to me a person who is not sexually active, who is accepting my whole moral talk that I'm having with her and guidance and counseling and continuing with her education, I wouldn't. But if she presents a situation for me that requires for me to give her contraceptives, I would give her contraceptives.
All right, now this will require me to
because I
take it
want
back
her to
the
develop
viewers.
into a proper woman in the Vision 2080 of Uganda at that time.
All right, interesting. We're looking at contraceptives to be distributed to young people in order to curb the issue of early pregnancies amongst teenagers in the country. And of course, we are simply calling for your views on this. So there are various comments on Facebook. That's Morning Breeze at NBS. You get to send in your comments and your views on Facebook. Our SMS platform is 8009, and our numbers to call are 0312-265-321 and 0312-265-322. With me, I'm having Madam Sophie Kyagulanyi, the Programs Manager, Women and Leadership. I'll go for our first caller. Hello.
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 Yes, Doreen, it's Raymond.
Sorry?
It's Raymond in Chibodi.
Yes.
I greet you all.
Thank you.
Doreen, nja kusooka nenye abakyala abo. Abakyala abasomye lwaki bawabya eggwanga. Doreen, kiki ekitegeeza mbu abaana tebasobola kubuulirirwa, tosobola kumujja ku WhatsApp, Facebook biki. Doreen, nja kuwaga ekyalo ky'okumpi wano Gombe wano e Matuga. Genda onoonyeyo bawala bameka abakozesa amasimu ga WhatsApp. Genda Luweero oba gye bali. Tugambe kati ab'omu kibuga bagenda okolera development bo babeesonyiwe. Abaana mubabuulirire ebyo bye mugamba development simala bagenda mu gendo. No, mukyuse ku baana mubabuulirire. Contraceptives first of all, Doreen, zirina side effect y'amaanyi. Nze nyina kazini wange nja kubuulira yabikozesa. Naye kati buli lubuto lwafuna luvaamu. Ekyokubiri waliwo omulala ye tafuna mbuto. Bafuna embuto zikulukuta bukulukusi lwa side effect y'ebyo ebintu. Doreen, abazungu be batuwabya. Era tunuulira abantu abafandinga ebintu ebyo. USAID ne UKAID. Aba abantu bewaabwe baagaana okuzaala tebakyazaala bamanyi side effect eri mu bintu ebyo. Nze ngamba abakyala abo baveeyo basomese abaana bakomyewo omuloozi ezaaliwo. Nze mukadde wange mami wange yaŋŋamba bwe bakuliranga nga teri ebyo simanya family planning biki. Ng'omuzadde agamba woogenderayo lubuto era nga beekuuma baababuuliriranga mubuulirira abaana ebyo ebiyisoyiso bye bakuba abaana bibi nnyo.
All right, Trans and Yusibel, have you held a campaign on behavior change?
Yes, like I told you, in civil society we have a prolonged approach, and I really appreciate the caller for emphasizing that we should be able to talk to our children and advise them and prepare them for the women we want them to be tomorrow, and also prevent them from engaging in this whole sexual activity, because before you talk about contraceptives, you need to talk about sexual activity. It's not that we are refusing to engage with them. That's why we are pointing out the fact that the parents of today have renegated on their duty, on their roles of moral upbringing of these children in their homes. The parents are no longer sitting down with their children and no longer talking to their children, both boys and girls, on what they should do or not do. They're no longer putting across the do's and don'ts as we used to get them when we were growing up. It's true. But also, I agree that this whole social development of Facebook, Twitter, etc. may at the moment be more centered in probably urban centers like Kampala and may not be reaching the girl in Kaperabyong. I agree with that, and probably made a wrong assessment of that. But what we are saying is that the girl in Kaperabyong may not be accessing Twitter, etc., but is sexually active even in Kaperabyong. You see? So the whole thing is for them to be sexually active. So as we encourage a parent in an urban center to sit down their children, talk to them, prepare them, tell them the do's and the don'ts. We are also telling the same parent in Kaperabyong. We are not selective in our application, and we've used that approach. But as we continue using this approach, we find that there are other girls or other teenagers who are sexually active, and they are continuing to be sexually active. So what do we do?
Well, the question would be, why is the elite, the elite like you also hit on, why is the elite promoting promiscuity?
The elite are not promoting promiscuity. The elite we are lucky actually to have in this Uganda, because the fact that they are educated, they are able to see things in a different context, in a different lens, with another view, because they are educated. And that's why we call that education aspiration, that let's have all people educated, because the more people are educated, they see things with another lens, with another view. But it doesn't mean that the fact that you're educated, you not mislead and misguide. There are those situations where they mislead and misguide, and we are sorry for those situations. But the elite are not promoting promiscuity, and I want you to cancel that. The elite are helping us manage reality situations that we are in.
And where's the reality?
The reality is that girls today getting pregnant are as early as 10 years. Girls today are sexually active as early as 6 years.
But the other reality is, Sophie.
Reality.
Yes, but the other reality is, Sophie, you know why these girls are getting pregnant at 13.
And that's what we are saying, that because we know, we are talking to them in advance not to enter there. But those who have entered there, we are saying that if you continue doing this without any preventative mechanisms, this is where you're going to end. These are now the preventative mechanisms. Choose. You either take contraceptives to prevent yourself from getting pregnant.
You know, you hit on WhatsApp, Facebook, technology and all. Why don't you, instead of, encouraging the use of contraceptives, why don't you back the anti-pornography bill that is in the corridors? Why not concentrate on that, see that it is passed, and whatever access these people have is checked?
I think the argument of backing the anti-pornography bill is another argument, and for another day, and I can come back here and take you fully on it. But the anti-pornography bill, what is the spirit? Let's first ask ourselves, what is the spirit?
One would say that it does carry the same spirit as your contraceptives.
You are one of the targets. You're wearing your earrings, you're dressing like that, you're wearing your ties, your full gladness and coming out comfortably for yourself is what the anti-pornography bill is coming out to curb. It is going to prevent you from dressing like that.
Those are certain clauses in the bill.
That is it. So
yeah.
that is the whole spirit. My question is, what is the spirit of the anti-pornography bill? What is the spirit?
Leaving other
And let's
factors
argue it out
constant,
from
but
that
do you
concern.
realize that in that bill, there are certain clauses that would favor your campaign on this?
That
yeah.
if they favor our campaign on this, we'll be with it. But we don't want this whole mix. You give and take. No, it shouldn't be in that bill. That's why I'm asking, what is the spirit? It's possible for them to introduce it with that whole thinking that it is going to favor some of the things you're talking
Check
about.
moral decadency,
Yes,
like
but
you
at the
earlier
same
hit on.
time, prevent. So you don't provide a balance. You're giving, you're taking. So what exactly are you bringing on table? What do you want?
So you'd rather tell a different path from that of the anti-pornography
Moral
bill?
decadence. Do you want to tell me that because you're dressed like that, a man should just come out of there and rape you because you're dressed like that? Is that moral decadence? No. We are saying that feel comfortable as a woman, as a girl, dress in a way that makes you respectable in the first place, but also makes you feel good about yourself. Feel good about yourself, because we know that when you feel good about yourself, everything you're going to do is going to be positive.
Very true, yeah.
Yes, that's what you're talking about in that anti-pornography bill.
All right, now it's the issue of contraceptives. And yes, contraceptives amongst teenagers to curb the early pregnancy rates that continue growing in the country as it is. And of course, the numbers to call are 0312-265-321 and 0312-265-322. Already posted on Facebook. That's Morning Breeze at 10 BSOTJ. SMS is 8009. Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, thank you for hosting, Sophie.
Yes?
But the most problem, Sophie's trying to drive us. You know, she's not coming straight. Okay? But
She's what?
What is important? We want Sophie to address the issue of girl, child. Okay, the girls. Okay, let me say the teenagers who are who have been disadvantaged in the early stages. Right? What is really her motive? Okay, how can she bring up that motivation of educating such disadvantaged girls in high institutions? Let me say these are adults. That's my point. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We take another one. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Morning. This is Fred.
Yes, Fred.
But before we support this system, let us first look at the disadvantages we are likely to face. Everybody has been using that as good effect in future. So why is she supporting?
Okay. All right. He's asking why you have to support the contraceptives. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Could I get your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Kampala. I'm Jonathan.
Jonan.
Yes. But I think I agree with Madam Ifedita on the parents' role in the upbringing of a child. Many parents are not doing enough. Most of after even, because I remember in time when I was growing up, we had a control on what to watch on TV, what we can read, and what but of later, you find a child reading, watching a movie that you would regard to be whatever, not right, basing on the age. And then the other thing I think is poverty. The moment we don't address the poverty issue, because most of these kids are not provided with the necessities that they need in life. So when they go out, maybe they are from school, they have to look for alternatives for people to help them. So if a child is not afforded with a help that she needs or she requires, don't expect her to, or don't blame her for whatever route she chooses to get whatever she needs to use.
All right, thank you very much. Sophie, if I may ask you, who's to blame for these high levels of moral decadency in the country?
Of course, the first point is the parents, because children don't grow from trees. They grow in homes. So the parents are the first points to be blamed. But second, the state also comes in. Why am I saying the state? A state that does not concentrate on the moral aptitude of its citizens does not give any guidance. That's why you find that because a state is not paying attention how people are raised, how children are raised, the citizens of tomorrow, you find that it won't pay attention to what happens thereafter. So it is the two. The first big percentage is to the parent. But remember that the parent is a contributor to the state. So the state also needs to come in and provide a clear, streamlined standard of morals in this country. You've seen that in some situations we are okay, in some other situations we are not okay. We are in a broken down situation. Not all things are happening well. Most things are not happening well. And that goes back to the first question of why we should only be talking to our children and counseling them and preparing them for the citizens we want them to be tomorrow. Preaching behavior change.
Yeah.
We can't preach behavior change, but the children are moving out of that whole behavior arguments of ours. So what happens? Because things have broken down. When you talk about this gentleman who asked about the disadvantages of education, I don't know whether I understood it right, but this is what I understood. Disadvantages of education, I don't know if you're looking at them at a point of when you receive education, when you don't receive education, when you receive half-baked education, meaning poor quality education. Yes.
Yeah.
What we are saying is that let's have quality education, the right amount of education. Let the citizens of this country, including women, be able to make informed decisions because they've been educated, and the fact that they've been educated, they are aware of the decisions they're going to make and what repercussions the decisions are going to have on them. What are the effects of the decisions I'm going to make? It's only people who are educated that can be able to make those decisions. While there's another argument that people who are educated are less risk takers when it comes to entrepreneurship, that's another argument. But at least what we are saying is that the more we have citizens educated, the more they'll be able to make choices that are informed. And probably the Ministry of Health should put enough resources there to ensure that beyond a structure, we have personnel, we have drugs, we have the high-tech technology and the equipment that is necessary to ensure that if this woman or girl or teenager goes in there to have a baby, they can have a baby, but as well come out alive, well taken care of, no healthy issues.
So why not demand for this quality services?
We are
before you ask
doing
the
it.
girls to jump to this?
When I discussed the whole gender
structures
issues
and
right from the beginning of this show, I wanted to bring out the whole argument that we need Ministry of Health to allocate sufficient resources to address the gender needs of Ugandans today. And some of the gender needs that I alluded to were maternal health services. In the maternal health services, that whole package of medical personnel in health centers, equipment of high technology, contraceptives, don't run away from it, addressing the effects of maternal issues, of childbearing, address those medical effects. That's all we are asking for. So it's a package to us.
Yeah, again,
we don't pick out one and leave all the others.
These demands have been made year in, year out, but the health sector does not improve. As we see, the health, in fact, it continues to creep year in, year out. And of course, there's also this looming worry that Uganda might not even be able to meet the MDG goals 2015. So what exactly can be done now? I think the demands have been made, the calls have been made on TV and radio, but nothing has been made.
We still will make a call for prioritization within the healthy sector. What exactly are they spending this money on? What exactly? If you may ask me, how much are they spending where and why? When you go to their wage salary, for instance, wage budget, for instance, what is the percentage of that wage budget in comparison with the service budget? And where are all these resources coming in from? These are all the questions we're asking. I think there is a will from the government, because if there wasn't a will from the government, we wouldn't even see any allocation to this sector. It would be either zero or nothing at all, completely. And in addition, we wouldn't see the government struggling to put up health centers in every sub-county in this country. There is a health center in every sub-county, meaning that they are working towards ensuring that those services are accessible. okay? But now we are saying, thank you, government. That is very good, but go ahead. Equip those health centers. It will help you reach your target of people accessing those services at that level, at the lowest level, at local government level and even lower, parish and even village. Put in drugs, ensure that the medical personnel are there, they are well paid. Of course, you had the argument last year of increments to the healthy sector personnel, salary increments, but also you had the whole call to recruit more healthy personnel. Some were recruited.
As more fly out of the country.
As more were flying out of the country, and especially those at a certain level, doctors and above were flying out of the country and consultants. But there is some effort. What we are saying is that government perfect that effort, make it a standard effort. Let Ugandans believe in even the will you're putting across, because the more you give these half-baked things, the more Ugandans won't believe in what is being provided.
All right, now on Facebook, with the various comments on Facebook, and time is really against me. I try to read out one or two, and we see what exactly you guys have to say about this issue of contraceptives among us teenagers in order to curb the early pregnancies as they are. Now, Robert Okelo says distributing contraceptives to teenagers is encouraging them to have sex at will, and that means we are not able to discipline our kids. What of STDs and AIDS? When we teach young ones, we need to instill in them the values of good morals and what it holds for the future and society. Could you respond to Robert?
Robert, thank you so much for that call. And you're right to make that assessment that the fact that we are not able to discipline our children, that's why they are ending up in sexual activity. And my call is to you and to the parents that you know, please discipline your children, and then we'll be able to prevent them to be sexually active. And of course, we won't be here talking about accessing contraceptives. But where these children are sexually active against their will, they are abused, they are violated, let's have contraceptives if they're going to prevent them from the dangers that are related with that sexual activity.
Now, Rahul Manana says, in my view, I don't think providing contraceptives will curb teenage pregnancies. First, contraceptives like pills have their own side effects that will affect the health of teenagers, and it's a sure way of letting them have live sex, leading to sexual diseases like AIDS and other STDs. It's better to have counseling seminars in every zone in the country at least twice a month, and parents too should be open to talk to their children about the same. Moksha Innocent says, when they brought condoms, the same thing happened. They were made accessible to all people, both young and old. The result was increase in cervical cancer in young mothers and penile cancer in men. Now it's contraceptives for the teenagers. What are you planning for our children? Another cause of death, or you want a white man to take our lands by helping them kill the young children, when we know our future mothers and fathers of the country are encouraging this to hell with contraceptives.
For me, Mugisha and the previous contributor, my advice to you is encourage these moral talks. And I am really appreciating the fact that you're even bringing on board ideas on how we can have broader talks outside home and probably family, of having seminars and counseling seminars. Go ahead, start these seminars, fund them, and make them reality. Don't just give these ideas. Contribute to what we have done and also play your part.
Tomshaba is saying, why don't you deal with the root cause? And it's a similar comment that I'm seeing here. Everyone seems to be asking you, why aren't you tackling the root cause?
That's why we are tackling the root cause by coming in with all these support interventions of talking to these teenagers and young children about preventing to engage in sex early, and also talking to the parents and reminding them of their role. The fact is that parents have renegated on their role via morals in their homes, in families, and we are encouraging them, even now I'm encouraging them to please go back and inculcate the right morals in your children, and we won't be here talking about contraceptives.
Exactly. Is the situation so bad that it needs urgent attention?
Yes, it is.
Is it so bad that it should be our focus as a country?
Yes, it is, because if we don't focus on it today, we won't have the tomorrow that we want. the citizens that we want to focus on today will help us go into the tomorrow that we want. So that's why it's so bad.
All right, thank you very much, Sophie. It's been a pleasure having you with us this morning. All right, now time is really against me. I cannot continue reading these comments, but thank you very much to whoever did contribute on Facebook, on our SMS platform, and of course, whoever was able to call in. The discussion does continue on Facebook. Judge Goes will be coming in with all the latest in sports. Remember to look classy, elegant, and of course, of quality by simply getting yourself classy designer suits from Winner Classic, Garden City, 3rd floor, because with Winner Classic, quality and elegance is guaranteed.